saying, I want to introduce probably the two key people that I collaborated with on this film. So I wanted to ask Malcolm Campbell if he'd come up. Mark, I just saw his look in his face. Malcolm is the writer. And I'd also happy to introduce the amazing Jack Reynor, who plays Richard.
Does anyone have a question to get started? Yeah, in the back.
How does Connor die? How does Connor die? Yeah.
Just in the head.
You mean medically? Is it plausible that he died?
Yeah, because I mean it's implied that he gets hit in the head, but his friends actually get him first. So.
Oh, yeah. The answer is, I mean, we don't know. You don't know which blow kills him. It's not, it's not possible to know that. But the sort of the medical people told us that if you get a blow to the head like that, it is possible that you can get up, walk around for quite a while, and then, die at some point after that. So it's been checked out.
Another question? Do you want to talk a little bit about how you came to the story and sort of the origins of the project?
Well, the beginning of the film was that there's a book called Bad Day in Black Rock by an Irish writer called Kevin Power, and that book was Ed Guiney, who's the producer of the film, who's also here from Element Pictures, read the book and was interested in it and showed it to me, and also showed it to Malcolm, who is also connected to Element Pictures through his wife, who works in development there. And both myself and Malcolm were drawn to the book, and particularly to the character of Richard. And that was the starting point, but we went quite far from the book in putting together the film, and allowed ourselves a great degree of freedom in deciding how the story would run in the film.
And Jack, how did you approach the part?
Well, I read the book kind of towards the end of 2010 and just thought it was incredible, and the subject material was something that was very close to my heart, because I grew up in a similar society to what we portray in the film. So when I met Lenny, it was kind of like, it was an open and closed case. I was incredibly enthusiastic about the project, and we spent 8 months working on kind of every aspect of the film. We just workshopped it all the time and just whittled it down to the product that we wanted. And that was it, really. That was how we went about it. We kind of just thought about it an awful lot for a very long time.
Did you know from the beginning that you would leave it kind of open-ended at the end, or did you consider different possibilities?
In the book, it does take you through the events that follow, but in a way, what I was interested in, and I think myself and Mal were mostly interested in, was just in the experience, in trying to grapple with the idea of what it would be like to be this boy who has to face a very different character from the person he thought he was, and to what extent we could really track that. And so there are many, out of any event, or there are many stories that you could tell, and it's be perfectly valid to tell the story of whether, what happens, of whether there's a trial, of whether he's convicted. There are many ways to approach a film based on this material, but what really interested us, for me, it felt stronger to, I think, bring the audience to a position where it's really difficult. You know you're looking at a real person, I think, at the end of the film, when you're looking at Richard, but it's really hard to, to take a checklist of psychological, it's really hard to define his state of mind, and yet he's very manifestly real, and that's, for me, that's the position we're all in vis-a-vis each other all the time. That was what interested me, not whether he is caught or not, or what happens to him later. Mal, do you want to say anything about that?
No. I think it was interesting because I was asked to do a talk to writers recently, and one of the first questions I was asked, what do you think about endings? I was like, well, it's opinions on that. Myself, I think it's, well, I mean, I think it's pretty clear, but and you're so close to it, and I wrote it, is that, you know, when he gets up the following morning and she looks at him, it's pretty clear, to me anyway, that he's not going to do what he said the night before. We all have those mad nights where we say one thing, and then the cold light of day the next day we kind of go, oh Christ, what have I said? And so he doesn't, and she's devastated and disappointed in him, as we are. And that just felt right for the character, because ultimately he felt like a child again and cowardly. And that's how I wanted to leave him. But I mean, I know we talked about it endlessly, and I mean, it was also a great surprise when I saw that final shot, because I didn't know that was going to happen. You know, it was just through the process that Lenny worked with Nathan, the editor, you came to that.
Yeah, there was the way that we'd written it originally was that you would see Richard in college, and that would be a sort of a sense, and we do see him in college, but then we have that final shot at home, and it's hard to say what it is about a particular series of images that, at least for me, feels right, and it just musically feels right, that there's a sense of him suspended, and also that in conventional drama, you expect to see the central character wrestling with their condition. What interests me about that last shot is that it's impossible to say whether he's actually maybe in some way actually come to terms with what he's done, or isn't thinking about it, or has closed it off in some way that I think is more disturbing and possibly truer than the usual way of ending a film like that.
There's one over here.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about what it was like shooting and acting in the scene of the beach house, the meltdown scene?
That particular scene wasn't something that we added until after principal photography. I think we shot that in March of the following year. And it was just kind of a gear change that we felt that we needed in the film, because that scene hadn't been there. We hadn't seen Richard explode and really face these demons in a very visceral way. So we went ahead in that March and we went back down to the beach house, and we kind of spent 3 days, or no, we spent 1 day, but it felt like three. Jesus. But Lenny and I, whenever we met up and we talked about it, and we wanted to do it in a way that it was very real and just wouldn't feel contrived in any way, that it was really going to be a breakdown in the most raw form. And to do that, we didn't rehearse it to any sort of intensity. And it wasn't about thinking about the emotions or what he'd done, or oh my God, I've killed somebody kind of thing. It was more, we decided to find a trigger. And what we used was, I don't really have anymore, but I used to have this fear of dying, where sometimes I would wake up in the middle of the night and it would strike me that, oh shit, I'm going to die someday. And that was kind of like the scariest thought. And I think the idea of waking up into a thought like that is a trigger in itself that causes panic. So we decided that Richard should fall asleep on the couch and wake up into the realization, into the very visceral thought of I've killed somebody. And that was where that scene came from. And once those thoughts began to manifest in the scene, it just grew bigger and bigger and bigger until it came to that intensity. But we closed the set for that scene. There was only maybe 5 or 6 people in the room, and it was very intense and very raw. And I think we shot it 3 or 4 times. And we got it in those just really long, we just kept the camera on for a long time. We just did really long shots on it and just let the camera run. And yeah, that was the scene that we came out with at the end. It was incredibly difficult and draining in a lot of ways. But I think it was definitely a scene that we needed in the film, and it works.
Other questions?